Hello Reborners, my name is Karen and this is Making Dolls with Karen. We're back with another baby on the table. This time it's Jennie. She's an awake, real born from Bountiful Baby. I believe that I misspoke when I mentioned her earlier. I think she is actually Dominic and Alexis' little sister. I think I misspoke when I said she was Joseph's little sister. Yeah, because I think it's Emmy, Joseph, Darren, and Cannon, and it's Dominic, Alexa, and Jennie in this particular family. They're all related, they're cousins or something, but because they're grandchildren of the owners, and so they're cousins some kind of way. Anyway, we're going to get started on Jennie. We're going to do all of her enhancements. I wanted to say, I don't mention this very often, but Jennie is pre-sealed, which takes 2 bakes. You just put the sealer on with a sponge, just like you would any other coat of paint, and they get 2 bakes to harden the sealer, to make it permanent. And it gives them a little texture on their skin. They don't feel like blank vinyl anymore. And then basically we're going to make her with 4 more bakes. We're going to do the enhancements and bake. We're going to try to get all the enhancements in one go. And then we're going to do her layers. There's 3 different layers that I use. I do 2 of each one, but I don't bake in between the 2 layers. So we're going to start with her blue. That's the color I like to start with the most. It's the most undertone you want to get. Of any color that you put on a doll, blue would be the one you would want to be the most under the skin, I would think. Because, well, if not, it's just going to look super weird, like she's bruised or something. And the blue's not very dark. It's not holding in the brush well. These are fairly new brushes, and it's a little bit hard to hold it into the brush. It's supposed to give a shadowy look in the corners of her eyes. I don't know if you can see that, but it's very hard to get that shadowy look right off the bat like that. Sometimes you'll have to apply it 1 or 2 or 3 times to get the actual color that you want, unless you just think shadowy is good enough, because it's very light. We don't want to do dark blue because that would just be too over assuming. I'm also going to put it across her forehead like this. This will be a little darker because I'm just swiping it back and forth like that. And then I'm going to dab it with this sponge to make it a little bit less bold. We don't want to see it boldly because, well, babies aren't all that blue. They do have some blue on them, but it's an undertone. And that's what it's supposed to look like. It's under the skin. We will come back when she's had a chance for her face to dry a little bit, and we'll put on her red on her face. Purple I only use if they have a lot of creases on their face, and she does not. She has the smoothest face I think I've seen in a baby in a long time. So we're not going to put any purple on her. Purple is also a shadowy color. It's less shadowy than blue. But the blue's supposed to actually make an undertone as well, not just a shadow. So we're going to let her sit for a minute while we move on to her feet, where we're going to also put blue right here in the arches, what would be the arches. Babies don't really have arches, but they almost make an arch on these babies. So we're going to put it right there where the arch is supposed to be. Let's put it that way. If they had an arch. Babies have very fat pads of fat on the bottom of their feet, and they don't really have an arch, not yet. They have to get a little older. And this also, you might have to apply a couple of times to get it to be the darkness that you want. You want it to show a little bit, but you don't want it to show very, very boldly. You don't want the baby to look like it stepped on a nail or something, bruised the bottom of its foot or something. You know, you want it to look like they just have a little bit thinner skin there. So we want to keep it sort of as an undertone. You can see it, but just barely. If you can see it on camera, it's probably too dark. And we're gonna let that dry as well. because we're going to do some work on the fingers and the hands and stuff. I have a ton of red brushes over here that I dipped, and I'm going to try to give her some color on her hands, on her fingers and her hands with these brushes I dipped. Some of them are big, some of them are little. I'm using the smaller ones, which don't hold very much at all, so we'll have to switch a lot. So what I want to do is, I saw this technique that somebody used on a doll, and I liked it very much. And it was, previously I was painting the whole entire hand a blushy color. She's got a hair on her. There we go. And this person just painted like the tips of the fingers, like this. Front and back, the tip of the finger. Kind of like that. If you can see it, I don't know if I'm holding it at the right angle. And did all the fingers that way, just the tips. And then they'd go back and get, like in this next little section of the finger, would be right under the first knuckle. I'm trying to get this thumb under there too, because it has to be colored as well. It's a finger. Anyway, you get the first little tip of their fingers. Before you get to that first knuckle, don't paint the first knuckle, just the fingers. And after you do that, we're going to try to move on to, I don't know if you can see this on the doll or not. I'm going to try to show it to you. It is this section right here on this finger. It's right here in the middle between the part I painted and the bottom of the finger. It's the second joint, I guess you'd call it. After you pass this first little joint, there's another little section of finger. It's this section right here on your finger, right in the middle. We're going to try to paint that, but not paint the crease. This is very, very light paint. This brush is not holding much paint at all. I'm going to switch to another brush in hopes of being able to get a little more paint on the doll. Some of these brushes have been used a lot more than other brushes, so they have darker paint in them. The longer you use your brush in this method, the more paint that concentrates in your brush. So keep that in mind. Okay, now I'm going to try to paint this next section, which is going to be a little bit harder, and then the last section as well. It's going to almost look like her fingers are striped. You'll see it on the front more than you'll be able to see it on the back. Here's the first finger, her index finger. I painted the tip, then I painted the middle, then I painted the bottom. I don't know if you can see it, it's very light. This might also have to be done 2 or 3 times. I'm just painting all the way across all of the fingers on the bottom section. Yeah, I'm gonna have to switch brushes again. These little bitty brushes just do not hold a lot of paint. I'm just gonna take a couple of them out so they're laying on the table. And if you want the paint to really show, you've got to sometimes do it over and over, but we're gonna do it before we bake. I wanna try to keep baking to a minimum. Baking can be safe for your doll, but it can also be a little bit not so safe. If your doll is got thin vinyl, some dolls are made with thinner vinyls than others, and they can actually get fissures in their head from too much baking. So we want to keep our baking down to a minimum. You don't have to be super afraid of that. I've only ever had 2 or 3 dolls in the whole career of me painting dolls that actually got fissures in their heads. And some of them already had the flaw when I got them. I just didn't know it yet. The reason I know it is, well, I figured it out. It was Maya. I had a Maya kit, and on her I had bought several kits from Bountiful Baby, and one of them had a misshapen head, and one of them had a droopy eye socket, and I had notified Bountiful Baby about it, and they said just boil the head and it'll come back out. So I thought the problem with Maya was going to be the same, but right over here on her face she had something that looked like little folds that went in, And I thought, well, that's the same thing. It just got a little squished or something, Chip, and I could boil it, but I think baking it'll probably bring it back out too. So I began to work on her, and every time I got her out of the oven, I noticed that the little lines on her face were getting longer and deeper looking until they almost looked like they were punching through the skin. And then I decided to look inside of her head, and that's when I saw that there was like a big crack, a big old crack in the vinyl in her head. And it was very prominent. And I had to stop baking her right away. Okay, I'm gonna do her hand, and over on her hand, I'm just gonna do all these little different sections between the little creases. It's really hard to get the entire hand painted the way you want it. That's why we go very slow, and we try to make the most of every step that we do on our doll. The enhancements usually take about an hour, I've noticed. Sometimes a little less and sometimes a little more, depending on how much you do and what you want on your doll. But they usually take around an hour to do. And it's worth the time to do it correctly, because you want your doll to look the best that it can. You don't want to have a half-painted, wrongly accented doll. You want it to look correct. And to do that, you have to take your time. So that's what we're doing. We're taking our time. So her hand looks like this. I don't know what you can see on there. Maybe nothing. Sometimes the enhancements are that light. You really can't see it on camera. And I noticed when I was watching another artist, I couldn't see any of what she did. She said, this is what I did, and she'd show it to the camera, and I couldn't see a thing. I could see her doing it, but I couldn't see the result after she got finished because it was just too vague. I'm just going back and putting a little more on top of some of these colors already so that they'll be a little more bold, because we are going to paint our layers right on top of them. So we don't want them to diminish because we put colors on top of them. That's what undertones are. Colors go on top of them. Now on the back of her hand, right here on just the back of her hand, I'm just going to just swirl around some red like this. Just swirl it around until the back of her hand looks a little bit pinker than normal. Not even as dark as her fingers, just a little bit pinker. Because babies have pink rosy areas on them. And I'm not using pink. I'm actually using this blush color right here. That is a wine color. You can see how dark it really is. Because it's so light on the brush though, it's coming out. Pink really, if you used a pink color, it would be a totally different color on your doll. It would look like Barbie pink, and you don't want that. And now these are all gonna need to be dipped again, so I'm gonna leave them on the table. And that's her first hand done. And I'm gonna do that to her other hand as well. It's pretty much in the same boat. The fingers are curled down. You can't do much of the palm at all. But we're just gonna do what we can do, and just what you can't do, you just can't do. And so I'm gonna just start by painting the backs of her fingers. Now this brush has a lot more paint in it. You can tell already it's darker, see? On those knuckles. And yeah, I got confused there for a second on where to paint next. I was going, okay, where's that next spot I'm supposed to paint? It's in between. And then the very tips. There won't be as much painting on the backs of the hands on this doll, on this hand, because, well, it's more curled up than the other one. And there will be some, but not as much. And when it's curled up like that, the only really part you have to really remember to paint is the sides of the fingers, because whatever you do to the front and the back of the fingers should include the sides as well, because that is part of the finger. Now, if you're only doing it to the front or the back, you don't have to do the sides, because if you're doing the palm part, it's just the palm part. And if you're doing the front part, it's just the front part. But if you're going to do both, front and back, you got to do the sides too. Otherwise, it looks very strange. I didn't do it one time, and I was going, oh, that looks really strange. And I had to go back and put some paint on it because I just didn't like it. There's not going to be much palm stuff done on this hand because it's just really, really closed. Let me find another brush. The only brushes that really hold a lot of paint are these bigger brushes. These bigger ones hold a lot more paint, but they're really hard to get in these tight little spaces. That's why I use a bunch. You usually end up using a bunch of red brushes. I have brushes for every color of my paint because I do not wash them, because it takes all of the fun out of this dry painting. You won't see me dunking any of these paint brushes in any paint while I'm doing this, because I did it already and I left them to dry. So all we're doing now is removing this semi-dry paint from the brush and putting it on the doll. Okay, that's got her hand blushed. Oh, I have to do a little bit on the back of her hand back here. If you do it to one hand, you need to remember to do it to the other one. There we go, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to start using a big brush on her face. It should be dry by now with the blue, and we want to get some blushy colors on her face. It's ultimately important that we get enough blush on her face to make it through all the layers we're going to do. So it may look to you like I'm over blushing her, but I promise you I'm not. I'm going to use this great big brush because it's got a lot of paint in it. And I'm just going to blush her up really good with some blush. We're going to put a little on her nose. We're going to put some across her mouth. This one's a little big for that. Let me try a smaller one. I can't get all of her nose painted either with that huge brush. We want her entire nose to be painted and inside of her nose to be painted real good. I also want to get some paint on her lips because it's the start of her lip color. I'm also going to wipe some of this off that went outside the lips because I really don't want her to look like she's sunburned, and it's a little much. She's got a little too much on that area. So we're just going to clean it up a little. You can always have a sponge handy for, if you want to remove the paint, you have to wipe, almost exclusively wipe. Dabbing will not remove it. It will make it lighter, but it will not remove it. Okay, here we go with the blush some more. While you're blushing, you need to remember some places that never get blush unless you purposely put it there, and that's around the eyes. You just want a little there. You don't want a whole lot. But on the face itself, we want to get a good bit of blush on her. We want it to show. I'm going to take this and dab it around a little bit. We don't want it to be harsh and stark and ugly looking, but we do want it to be blushy. And if you think it's too bold, you need to get your kabuki. Now, where's my kabuki? Oh, wow. I left it on the table, I guess. This is it over here. I have a kabuki for that. We kabuki it around a little. It softens the edges, and it makes it not look like there's an extremely hard start and stop on the blush. Now, her face looks like this right now, but we're not finished with her blush. I'm just not satisfied with it yet. We're going to kabuki this all around and smooth it out a bit. And we're going to, once again, put her back down and let her dry a little bit before we come back to her face. And we're going to go to her feet now. We're just going to let this settle a little bit. I'm going to put a little on her forehead first. And dry up a little bit, because we don't want, you put wet paint on wet paint, you're just taking some of the paint off. You're not really doing anything extra to it. So it needs to be dry. And rather than get out the heat gun at this point, I'm just going to let it dry naturally. It's pretty thin now, and it's going to dry pretty quick. So we're going to move to her feet where we put the blue on it. And it's not even blue enough. We're going to put some more blue on it. I wanted to let that dry a little bit first because, you know, paint sticks to paint if it's dry. If it's wet, it's going to just remove the other layer, or the layer you're putting on will be non-effective. We want to be able to see the blue on our feet a little bit better than we do, because after all the layers go on, this blue is going to be diminished. And we do want to see it, we just don't want to have a super blue foot, you know. Okay, that should be enough blue on her foot. Now, the whole bottom of her foot is going to be red. So we're going to take this brush and we're going to brush the whole entire bottom of her foot. Now this is just the bottom of her foot we're doing. We're going to go all around the blue like that, and we're going to make her foot partway pinkish and partway bluish. And we're going to try to get it as even as possible. This is such clean paint, you don't have to worry about it's going to make your creases all mucky and dirty looking, because it's not. We're going to dab it just a little bit to get all the super stark looking stuff off. And we're going to let that be good for right now. And then we're going to do this other foot the same way. All around the blue we put on her. If you need to know how to mix your colors, I have a video on that posted already. I'm not sure how far back you have to look at it to find it, but I think it actually says mixing paint. How to mix your colors. I use basically 3 colors. Well, if you count the undertones, I use sometimes 5 colors or 6. I use the blush. I use the warm blush also as well. Bountiful Baby has it pre-mixed for you. You do not have to mix this color. And I use the flesh color, which comes in 08 all the way down to 02. I use 05, it's in the middle. Okay, that's the bottom of her feet. Now on the top of her feet, well, she's got a little speck on her right off the beginning. You need to have things like toothpicks and pointy swabs at the ready, because if you get something on your doll, you need to clean it off right away. I don't know what that was, but it was pink colored and it wasn't paint. Okay, I'm going to paint her actual toes. So that means we have to remember to get the sides and in between the toes as well, because we're painting the top now, just like we painted the bottom. We're not the whole foot, just the toes. Make sure you get down in the little crevices and on the sides. We want them painted completely. They should look a little bit like that. And then we're going to dab that only slightly, because we don't want to take all the color off. This color's light enough as it is. And then we're going to do this foot the same way. That just looks really stark on the side of that toe. I got to clean that up a little bit. When you're having a little bit of trouble, it's really helpful to have a brush. I like this flat brush, and you just kind of dab it down in these little creases and stuff. If it's too dark or too stark, it'll pull some of that paint right out to where it looks a lot better. Okay, now we're getting the top of the toes on this foot. And in between each work area, we're letting it sit and dry a little bit more. Even though I call this dry painting, you can tell by the shininess of it, it's slightly wet. It's just a slight, I probably dipped these brushes, I think not yesterday, but the day before. And even though almost all of the paint thinner will evaporate out, the paint is still somewhat a little bit wet. It must be the Exodus oil or the thinning medium that I put in it. I put both of those in my paint because it makes it extra creamy and takes care of the granules. Okay, there's her feet pretty much painted. And now we're going back to her face a little bit more. I'm not satisfied with the darkness of her blush yet. Her face is covered good, but it's not the color that I want it to be. I want it to be a little more rosy because, like I said, it has to make it through all the layers of paint we're going to put on top of it. So I'm going to rose her up a little bit more. Part of her is plenty fine. We just don't want it to be super white. So I already rose that part up. But this part right on her cheeks and right on her forehead, I want to be a little darker than it was. And this is coat number 2. And we have let her dry in between each time. And this time I'm also going to paint her ears. The ears need to be a little rosier too. And remember, anytime your brush doesn't have enough paint in it, just switch to another brush. That's why I have so many brushes, because I use a lot of blush on my dolls. And the more you use, the more brushes you're going to need, because they just don't hold that much. These great big brushes are a lot harder to use, but you can sort of use the very tips of them and get by if you're careful. We don't want to get this all over her head. We don't want it, spread around outside the ear area. We just want to get her ears. So I'm just using the very tips of the brush, because if I try to use any other part of it, it's going to get too much on her head. And she's already got some on her head that I'm going to have to wipe off. And we have to be very careful wiping it off too, because we'll wipe all the color off her ears as well. So I'm going to wipe behind her ear right here and get that off, and right in front of her ear right there. And I did hit a part of it. I'm going to get a smaller brush because I can't get in that little crevice right there with this great big brush. That looks pretty good. That's how it looks. Now I'm going to do this one over here the same way. All these brushes that I'm laying on the table have to be re-dipped. It's a process. And then I leave them sit for a while, and they are ready to use on another doll. I'm presently working on beefing up my inventory for the Christmas rush. Dolls sell fast. Last year I sold 50, and this year I'm hoping to sell more. So you can't sell what you don't have, so I'm going to be making a lot of dolls. I'm just finished a couple that I didn't even record me making them, because I can go a little faster if I'm not having to explain everything, and I need to beef up my inventory. So I'm just doing some of the dolls with y'all, and the rest of them I'm just doing outside of that. Okay, once again I'm going to put a little more blush on her face. She's just not to the color that I want her to be. She's not retaining enough color from just 2 applications. This will be probably her last application, because it's getting to the point where, well, I don't want to put any more on her. Try to get some inside of her mouth on that tongue. When babies have a tongue showing, it needs to be colored dark. Tongues are usually dark, and yeah, we're gonna have to kabuki that a little. Even though it's darker, it's still got some hard starts and stops, and I don't like that. It should fade, 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 gone, like that, not just go dark, nothing, Now her face looks very too red probably to you, but it's just not. It's not too red. And before we finish her face, I'm going to put some lip color on her. I know I did swipe her lips with the brush, but that's not going to be adequate. She needs this concentrated lip color that I made. I made it just by using a jar of thinning medium, just straight, and put the color right into the thinning medium to the darkness that I thought I needed. Now this paint is different. It's thick and it's dark. And we don't want to put a heavy dark coat on her lips at the very beginning. We just don't want that. It's not going to look attractive. It's going to be cracky looking and splotchy looking, and you don't want that. So we're going to just put it on kind of thin. This is an area where you're going to build the color. And I have to take my glasses off to do this. I need new glasses really bad, but I haven't been able to get any yet. And so I now see up close better without my glasses than I do with my glasses. Okay, here we go. We're going to paint her lips. Now, I take a lot of time on the lips because I want them to look really good. And one part of making them look really good is that we stay within the lip line, and we color every bit of the lips inside the lip line. It's a delicate process, and if you can't see the lip line, then you're in trouble, because you can't color it correctly if you cannot see it. So we want to get this done really early in the process when we can still see the lip line. Lots of coats of paint is going to obscure the lip line, and you won't be able to see it. So we start our first coat right now, and we're going to build on it as we go along. Probably 3 coats will be enough. Not sure about that. Sometimes it only takes 2. Sometimes it might take 4. but we want really nice looking lips. We don't want them to be scratchy looking or uneven or any portion of it not painted. And we definitely do not want to go outside the lip line. Many people go outside the lip line. They make the mistake of thinking this little fat area underneath the lips is part of the lips, and it is not. The lips stop. There's a line. You can see it. And if you go past it, you're just making a huge mistake. Even if the lips are not even going to show any color after this, we have to get this coat on because paint sticks to paint. And even though you can't see the paint, if it fades away to where you can't even see it, it's still there. And because it's still there, the next coat will stick even better. Her lips are very light, and that's the way we want them, super smooth. I go over and over them, trying to make them smooth. I don't like bumpiness in it. I don't like some dark line showing up. I want it to look smooth and flawless. I'm real picky about the lips. Real picky. We do not want them to be ugly. Now that's how her lips should look. This part underneath the lips down here that's still white is not her lips. That's her lips. Now I'm going to also put some of this in her nose because we need a color in there. We start with this color, swirl it around. Don't just put a dot in there. It'll just ball up into a dot and you'll have something that looks like she's got a bloody nose. We want to swirl it around in there and coat the inside very lightly of the inside of her nose, just like we did the lips, very light. And we'll build on that as well as we go along. Every color we put on her face, we put in the nose. So that will help her nose to gain color. Now we're also going to do her nails. Nails are kind of delicate. We also do the same thing to her nails. We want to stay within the nail lines, and we also want to not have it thick because it's going to pull up right down at the bottom of the nail where, you know, the nail part would be coming right out of the skin right there, and it's going to look dark and weird. So we're just putting a very light, thin coat of this on there. I barely touch the brush to the paint. Literally, you can't even tell there's any on the brush. I mean, you can't look at it and tell. You can tell because it's painting. You can actually see there's a color there, but the thing about it is, the color that you see is probably going to just fade away when it paints because everything gets lighter when you bake it. I mean, when it bakes. I said when it paints. She's got a little bit of something on this nail. As soon as you see a problem like this, you take care of it immediately. And if you do that, your doll will come out much better. Sometimes when you're painting on the dry brush, it can actually sometimes make a tiny little something on their nail. And you don't want that because it'll look bumpy or gross or something later. If you have too much on your brush, just wipe some of it off and go back to what you're doing. We want it to look even with the other nails. That's one of the hardest things to do, is not only getting it to look good on that nail, but it has to match the other nails as well. And I'm not achieving that right now. There we go, that's better. Also, a little known fact, wood soaks up paint too. If you can just stick that little tip of the toothpick down into the paint you want to soak up, sometimes it'll just soak it right up. Wood is kind of porous like that. Okay, that's good. Now later when we get all finished with this first coat and it's baked and everything, and the dog's gonna bark, the neighbor's kids are outside and she hears them. We may go back and find that some of the nails look darker than other ones. So we may not need to paint every nail every time. You just need to look at them and see how they're looking. If one seems darker, don't paint it that time. We're just putting thin layers on. Can't even see the thumbnail, so it's no problem there. Can't see it on that one either. Oh, goody. I like it if they have a finger that's tucked underneath like that. If you can't even see the nail at all, it's the best, because trying to paint that nail under there is murder, something close to murder. Anyway, we're going to get her all gussied up here, and we're going to do some creases. We're at 35 minutes right now. So you see, this is a long process. It's not something you do really, really quick. We take our time and do every step to the best of our ability, because we want our doll to look really, really good. And this is the best way to do it. It's better than having to go back and correct something later because you hurried. And hurrying never pays off. I mean, there's really no points for going slow, except that you can do a better job. Okay, we're going to let that sit now. And we're going to do this last foot. Now, when she comes out of the oven, we are going to check her. There is occasions when you might have to do more enhancements in a second layer. And it's not like we have to be that stingy with our bags. We just want to not have to do any unnecessary bags. So we're trying to get as much done as we can, but we don't want to overdo it. There have been times when I stopped and baked because I got something so perfect I didn't want it to mess up. And that's perfectly fine to do that. If you think, oh, this is a hard step, but I've got it, and you're afraid that doing more is going to mess it up, stop and bake. It doesn't hurt that much. We just don't want to have 20 bakes. I've seen people who, I actually watched an artist one time, and I think it's the weirdest thing. She felt the need to neutralize her kid. That's where you take the overlying color of the vinyl and you try to change it to something more neutral. She thought it was orangey looking, which I didn't think it was, but she did. And she spent 45 layers of paint just neutralizing the doll. And I thought that was absurd. Absurd. That's just my opinion. Plenty of people neutralize their dolls, but 45 steps, I mean, that's... And then she finally got it where, okay, now I can start painting it. Okay, I'm going to crease her a little bit, and I do my creases. Oh yeah, I need to give her some veins too. We didn't do veins or capillaries. Veins, I do my veins and my capillaries and my creasing with pencils. And here's the reason why. They're cleaner. You can control them better. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. But I'm going to give her a vein right up here on her forehead. And remember, when you're doing veins, you want them very, very squiggly. I'm using aquamarine. It's spot on, the closest color I can find to vein blue, which is a tealish color. I tried to use teal and a couple turquoise. They were just too dark. I like this color. You want them to look like they're disappearing beautifully into the background because they're undertones. Nobody has veins up on top of their skin. You can see them through the skin, but they're still underneath her skin. So I'm going to start way up here on her head where it doesn't matter because I'm going to give her hair. And I'm going to start to get my squiggle right. We want to make a real curvy little squiggle coming down on her forehead. And then I'm going to put a branch off of it. It's going to look like that. And no, it's not going to be that dark. I know you can see that. When I've finished rubbing it, it's going to disappear beautifully into the background. It's only going to show some, so that when I start putting the layers of skin on her skin tones, you'll barely see it, but you will see it still. The color, the darkness, and the thickness of the vein has to do with your point. I like a little rounded point, and how hard you press down. Very light touch, very, very light. I'm gonna put one over here on her temple. Also gonna rub it a whole lot. We don't want to see it boldly. but we do want to see it. If it doesn't show at all, then you just wasted your time. One thing you don't want to do is make any veins straight. Don't press down really hard, and make sure you rub them. And they will absolutely look good. Now, capillaries are not veins, they're arteries. They're little tiny, tiny, tiny arteries that show. Babies have them on their eyelids. Sometimes she has open eyes, so she doesn't have any eyelids. But they also have them on their cheeks and their temples and places like that. Teeny, 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 and about 100 times more squiggly than you made the veins. Okay, I'm going to put one up here on her temple, and I'm going to try to show it to you. My friend says she can see it if she enlarges the picture. But I don't know, you might not see them. That's one. You can put them anywhere you like, as many as you like, as few as you like, as many branches as you want on it, like no branches at all, but they need to be super squiggly looking. I'm going to put one on her cheek here. Be careful, don't touch their lip color while you're doing this, because you don't want to wipe off anything you've just put on. We want them to look natural, like they belong where they are, but we also want them to be under the skin, just like any other part. Now, she looks really good to me. I think her face is finished for step one. Now, you can put veins and arteries on the arms and legs too. I don't usually fool with it because you don't really see them. And you can put little capillaries down here at the ankles, wherever you want to do it. But I'm going to skip that. I don't crease the face either because there's very little usually to crease on a face. The pencil I'm using, oh, I forgot to tell you, the pencil I used for capillaries is called Crimson Lake. Jerry's Artorama has all these Prismacolor pencils for like $1.35. And if you buy 12, and they don't even have to be 12 of the same color. You just buy 12 pencils, they're $1.25. So anyway, we're gonna put a few creases on her. I'm using henna. It's sort of a brownish red. I don't know how to explain it really. It's not purple. Purple looks funky on your doll. For creases, I used to think it was great. You want to keep this pencil sort of sharp, not super sharp like you do the capillary pencil, because you need to get that point down in these little creases on the legs. Because if it's outside the crease, it looks funny to me. But we're going to crease in between her toes like this. It makes the toes look, if you can see that in between the big toe and the small toe compared to this toe here, this one looks like it actually has definition between it. And this one looks like it's molded together as one big toe, kind of. Yeah. But I do that in between the toes to give them definition. And then I go on the toe where the little creases are, and you don't do every one because it makes their feet look dirty, but you just do a few. Just put a few little dashes on their toes like that. And then on the other side of the foot, I'm going to do these little creases on the bottom of the foot, only the big ones, because they look super cute when they're enhanced. And they'll show up even later after you've put all the colors of paint you're going to put on this doll. We paint everywhere on our doll. We don't leave any parts unpainted. If you put blush on the face, you are also going to put blush on the bottom of the feet. If you put skin color, you put it on the bottom of the feet as well. And see, I just did those deep, deep creases at the top. Okay, now I'm going to do this foot the same way. First, I'm going to put some definition. Now, when the toes are apart like this, of course, there's nothing you can put there. But the ones that are touching, we want them to look like they're actually real toes laying against each other and not a molded plastic toe. Keep all these dashes and stuff you put on the foot kind of light and don't overdo them. Now I'm going to do the bottom of the foot the same on this one like I did the first one. Only the big ones, only the big creases. We're not doing every little crack. It just looks too much. it begins to become dirty. And if you think it's a little too dark, have your brush ready and just brush them a little bit. It'll take some of the darkness away if you think they're too dark. Okay. Now, on the arms and legs, I'm just going to crease a few creases. We're only going to do the most prominent ones. And we're not going to do every crease on the doll because they're just going to look too weird. On the back of the leg, I always do the back of the knee. Unless it's so bent you can't get to it. Sometimes it's really, really bent up a lot. And some of these other little creases that just look, I don't know, a little more natural. The tiny ones I don't do because it's too much. Now we're going to do this other leg the same way. I'm just going to pick a couple of creases on the top up here and just do them. I like to do this one that's right by the ankle and this one above it. It just depends on where the crease is and how superficial it is. If it's really, really superficial, like this right here, there's one right here above this knee, you can't even see it. It's so superficial that if I even did it, the paint would probably wash the color right out of it. Even though we're going to bake it, really, really superficial creases do not keep their color, so there's no need to even do them. But some of them, they just need doing. It's just, you just get where you know, I'm going to do that crease, I'm not going to do that crease, you know. You just make up your mind and just do what you've made up your mind to do. Now on the arms, the same thing. I like to do in between the fingers. I want them to look like the toes, like they're actually got some definition to them. And I like to do a few of these little lines on the fingers as well. It's cute looking. I don't do them all, I just go across it and give them a little bit of definition. Hopefully you're going a little straighter than I'm going. Sometimes these do not last. They sometimes go away. So if they go away, well, they just go away. I don't usually redo them. On the inside of the hand, I trace all these deeper lines. And if the fingers were up, I do the backs of the fingers as well, but they're not. So no need. Do some across the wrist, do in the elbow here, on the inside of the arm, and this one up here, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do on this arm because it's just, the rest of them are too superficial. Brush a lot of them so they don't look funky. Paint will cover some of it up. Some of it will not show, and that's, I guess, just the luck of the draw. If it's a real important area that you really, really, really want to be creased, you might need to do it a second time later on. But this gives you a base as to where you want your creases, where you have decided to put them, so that when you go back to re-enhance the creases, if you choose to do that, you're not just willy-nilly putting new creases on them. You're doing the same creases over again to keep them. See, that makes the fingers look a little more natural to me, to have the creases on it. I don't know if you can even see it. I can. Anyway, on the inside of the hand, I'm going to do the same thing. Now, when the hands are like this, and you see the thumb is, and there's a little crack, right, doing that makes it look more realistic too. Doing that part. I don't know if I did it on the first hand, but I'm going to go back and check it. See, it makes it have a little more definition to it. It looks like a hand instead of just some plastic thing, and I like it. That's why I do it. Some creases are good. Creases can make your doll look good, or they can make them look terrible, depending on where you decide to put them and how you decide to do them. I go very light. Once again, your darkness and your thickness of the line is controlled by your point and by how hard you press down. I take a light touch for that because I don't want, I didn't do this one. I'm gonna do it real quick. I don't want really dark creases. I just want something there to show that it looks like, you know, if you folded your hand, you know, it looks kind of dark in the areas where your finger folds, and it needs to on a baby too. And that's all the creasing I'm gonna do. And we're right at 49 minutes. And we're gonna get her in the oven now for her first bake. Well, it's actually her third bake because she had to bake 2 times for her sealer, but I don't count those bakes because you'd have to do those anyway. This is gonna be her first bake with color on her. I'm gonna give her eyebrows too. I like to do that early because if I don't, one thing is I forget, and another thing is they don't look as natural. I'm using sandbar brown. I use the lightest brown color I have, and I want them very wispy and soft. I don't sit there and draw each individual hair. I'm not that artistic. I just want eyebrows on my doll. And one of them's gonna be easier to draw than the other one. Just like putting the eyes in. One of them's easier to put in than the other one because you're either right-handed or you're left-handed, which makes one of them easy and one of them hard. Sometimes if you turn the head upside down for the second one, it makes it a little bit easier, but that's my eyebrows. With paint over the top of them, they don't look quite that funny, but you need to get them on there so they can be baking on. Baking cures the pencil just like it does the, I'm gonna show you Leilani. I put eyebrows on her and then I painted over her, and her eyebrows are much diminished now because of it. Her hair's a little scrunched down because I've been holding her by her head like this. But that's okay, I'll fix it when I put her together. But anyway, we're gonna get Jennie, I wanna call her Jeannie for some reason, but it's Jennie, Jennie. And we're gonna get her in for a bake, and while she's baking, I'm going to be dipping my brushes over again and getting them back in the jar, because that's what keeps us in brushes, is immediately re-dipping them. So anyway, I wanna remind everybody to please like, subscribe, and share, and happy reborning.